Thank you for tuning in to episode 237 of This Week in Real Estate, the T-Wire podcast, broadcast live Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. I just forgot my show title. That was a really smooth transition into everything except the show title. So the show title today is High Prices and No Buyers. This episode was brought to you by listeners and viewers like you. We don't have any way for you to pay me money, so there's no Patreon or anything. But the one way you can support the show is by donating. Just kidding. There's no way to donate. Just share the show. That's it. We don't ask for money or anything. All we want you to do is share the show, send it to other people who are like you, because after all, it is viewers like you that make this thing possible just by watching. If you're joining us on YouTube, you can comment and we can display your comment and talk about you, or we can talk about your comment just like Dusty did. She's here in Arizona. We got some news specific to her today too. So she says that she be first, ? Brian Hershey, look at that. He's a good friend from back in the day, my college buddy. He said, hey, Ray, I actually have a question for you today, despite you still only owing me $8 for tacos. Okay, we'll talk about that later. We're also broadcasting on Clubhouse, and you can join the show by raising your hand on Clubhouse and coming up to speak with us about everything that's going on in the news. And last but not least, we're also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're everywhere. So the one reason we created this podcast is so you'd have one place to go for about an hour to get succinct professional analysis from those of us who are actually active in the field. And today, I am with a good friend. I feel like I should use your formal name. So please welcome to the show, Rebekah Daniels. What's up, Bex?
Thank you.
Yay!
What's up? What's my informal name?
Becca, right? Becca's the informal.
Yeah.
Rebekah Daniels, if you go look her up on
Okay.
Instagram and all the things. But your Instagram handle is Homes with Becca, right?
Yeah,
Homes
because
by
Homes
Becca or
with
with
Rebekah is too long.
that's too much.
It's a mouthful.
That's too much. Well, thanks for joining. I'm excited that you're here. I feel like I see you almost every day.
Yes, you're welcome.
We're at the same real estate brokerage. So Becca is also at Real, and there's like a mastermind on Monday and a mastermind on Tuesday, and then we do the book club on Thursday. So yeah. I get my fill of Rebekah throughout the week. So and then we have the meme groups on Instagram.
Yes, there's so much love in the meme groups.
That's right. Well, I'm glad you're here because it's almost a coast to coast show. I'm kind of in the middle. You're out in
Coast
Washington.
to mid, yeah.
Yeah, coast to mid. Speaking of, tell people what markets you work in. So if they wanted to send you a nice little referral, they could do that.
Yeah, I'm in the Seattle, Tacoma area, and I basically cover everything up to Everett, all the way down through the Puget Sound area. And if you aren't familiar with the area, that means nothing to you.
I love the Puget Sound this time of year is pretty great. Oh, what? Say it again.
Puget.
Oh, Puget. Okay.
Not putrid. And it actually is gorgeous right now. Well, not right this moment. It's cloudy. It is the Seattle area, but
I was fixing to say you get a ton of rain, right?
We do. It's like 50-50. Like half the year is rainy, half the year is not raining. But it's not like it's torrential downpours. It's mainly just like a drizzle or maybe a few sprinkles most of the days.
Yeah, okay.
And then the summers are gorgeous.
From someone that's nowhere near your market, as we are, considering where to go on vacations and stuff like that, it's scary to plan a vacay up there because you don't want to get caught in all the rain, but it seems like that's what we see all the time. Rain.
After July 4th, it's beautiful weather through like August.
Oh, nice.
So that's when you can have like kind of
1
guaranteed.
Month. That's 1 month. So,
yeah, so like
after July 4th, it's going to be gorgeous until August.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, then August, you have like the wildfire season, so everything gets a little bit smoky.
There's a season for wildfires?
Yes, that's the West Coast for you.
That's nuts. All right. Well, we have a really good question from Brian Hershey in the chat. So, Brian, I'm going to get to your question too. He says Shelton, Washington is awesome. Everything else is just a suburb of Shelton.
That's funny.
So, is that a cool place?
So
I don't know what the
I haven't heard it being said that everything else is just a suburb of Shelton. It's usually everything else is just a suburb of Seattle.
Okay.
But Shelton is nice. It's like more of a rural area compared to where I am.
Yeah.
Olympia
Brian
is
and I
nice.
like rural. He said
Rural.
Olympia is awesome. Go while the salmon are migrating.
Yeah.
All right. And we also have Olivier. He's joining us from Canada. Welcome, Olivier. He says Matt is not first and even not second on YouTube as comments. So I don't know where Matt is today. Matt Lamar. Oh. She
Matt
is
Lamar.
not in the fan club, guys. She said, "Who's Matt?"
All right.
All right, so let's get in right into the first article because it kind of goes along with Brian's question, and it's a good question. He said, which I'm shocked by, if you know Brian. No, I'm kidding. Brian and I used to slackline in front of the dormitory. Like that's how long
Wow,
ago.
y'all go way back.
Way back. So he said, so here's the question. I noticed a huge adjustment in Zillow prices for Northwest Arkansas over the last 2 weeks, equal to about 9 or 14% decrease in overall prices. Basically 200 square feet down to $182 a foot. The question is, what have you all, it's kind of cut off the screen here. It says, what have you all noticed? And number two, obviously Zillow is not a great indicator of market health or prices. Yes, we have most real estate agents will tell you that the Zillow numbers are tough to go by. Even Zillow pulled out of the iBuying thing. They were using their own data to purchase properties, and they would buy these properties and then flip them and put them back on the market. And Zillow came out and said, hey guys, our data is not good enough to predict prices, what they should be and where they think they should go. So I would say your Zillow data, it makes adjustments all the time based on active listings, based on solds. It is going to be wildly inaccurate, especially for a price per foot. So unless you're in a neighborhood where everything is cookie cutter, all the homes are almost the exact same, maybe 2 or 3 floor plans, that is going to be an area. And you can go to that comparative market analysis that Zillow creates called the Zestimate. You can go there and make sure that it's only pulling properties from that neighborhood in which everything is similar. In that instance, you'll have accurate data. But otherwise, it'll be pretty wildly inaccurate. And I think that's further evidenced by the first article that we have today, because CNBC says that home prices rose for the 3rd straight month in April. And that's the S&P Case-Shiller index. Let me share that article so people can see it there. Oops. There it is. Okay, so this article says home prices peaked in June, falling sharply through the beginning of the year. Now they're recovering steadily. Home prices in April were still down 0.2% compared with April 2022. According to the S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller National Home Price Index, they were 0.5% lower. They were 0.5% higher month to month after seasonal adjustments. Prices are now just 2.4% below their June 2022 peak. So we're really not off that far on home prices. But I think what a lot of people are seeing probably around the country are the adjustments of the aspirational sale prices. So we had a lot of people that wanted to sell the house and they're looking at the hot market and they're thinking, wow, it's really a seller's market. I know my neighbor just sold $20,000 above ask. So I'm going to price my home $50,000 above what it probably should be listed for. And we're going to try to take every advantage possible. So they hit the market and the home sits. And as the home sits, the prices are adjusted because they're trying to sell this thing. They don't want to get into a situation which it's a 30-day, because the average price adjustment after 30 days is 10%. So they're trying to adjust price very quickly. And what you see is an increase of homes that are currently on the market that are dropping in price. Now, this is like chum for real estate reporters because now they have something where they can say home prices are dropping and scare everyone. And Zillow and different data tools that read active listings see that active properties are dropping in price. So that lowers estimates because they're using those active listings as a comparison tool for a home, telling you what it should sell for. And we know the active listing should not be used for that because it's, I could list my house right now for $1 million. It would affect everyone's Zillow's estimate in my area. So, but I'm not going to sell it for that. So I think that's where a lot of the data inaccuracy comes from, Brian. So that's a good question. But what are you seeing in your market? Are you seeing that home prices are now lofting back up there, or are they moderating down? What's your average price point and what are you seeing?
Yeah, so our average price point for our entire MLS is around 700,000. Obviously, that's going to be skewed based off of what area you're in. We did see a big drop back, after June when all the interest rates went up, and then that kind of like went down, but now we've been seeing them start to come back up a bit. So we've been seeing an increase since about January in the average sales price, but it is still lower than what it was in June, but it's only like 15,000 less than what it was in June last year. So it's not off by much. And as far as like what things are selling at for percent of the original price that it was listed at, we're still pretty close to that at like 98%. So there's some, price adjustments, obviously, but it's not too far off. I think we're kind of back to a normal market, if you will, like that pre-COVID type of market.
Wow. What was that like?
It's like normal.
60, 90 days on market. Are we going to start to see that stuff?
Well, let me look and see what we have on our days on market. We're still not that many days on market though. But we've never that's the thing about this area is that you always have so many people that are coming in that it's always been a very fast-paced market, which is why it exploded so much during that feeding frenzy over the last few years.
Jen, what's up? She's our Portlandia correspondent. Jen says prices in the hot areas of Portland are still holding. She just accepted a $75K over asking on a listing yesterday. I would say in Arkansas, the numbers show 100%. So the numbers show on average, it's 100% list price to sell price ratio. So a home that's listed, it's going to sell at that price. But in reality, what we know that's happening is homes are coming up above here, and then they're adjusting, and then they're selling at that price. So that's what we're seeing. So the numbers aren't telling you the full story when you see it's 100% list price to sell price. Yes, but that's usually after some adjustment from the aspirational sell prices. We are seeing that great properties that are listed, priced right. The home is, pristine. Everything's cleaned out, marketed well. Those are going very quickly and over ask. But if it's not priced right, it's super price sensitive right now. Mm-hmm. Brian said 2 more questions. One, if a buyer is using Zillow as an argument for a specific purchase price, what should an agent or seller do to counter that? And 2, I have a 2,400 square foot warehouse on my property. They're completely renovated and really stellar E&B or mother-in-law suite. Oh, that's cool. This was never included in the value of the home. I purchased it when it was a shell. Now it's fully AC'd and plumbed Airbnb rental. What would you do to maximize the renovated and livable square footage? So that gets really tricky because sometimes appraisers won't count that as square footage for the main dwelling. So you don't get the same price per foot that you would in a regular dwelling. You also don't get the same price per foot for a metal building as you would just a regular built home. So you won't get, if everything's selling for $200 a square foot, you're not going to get $200 a square foot for the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit that's out there. So I think if it's an Airbnb and it's money making, you could take an income approach to that one building and then add that to the value of the home. But there's not everybody that's going to want somebody living out there too. So it's going to limit some of your buyer pool. Someone else is going to want to use it as a giant shop that's really nice. So you never really know. It always kind of goes back to highest and best use. So if it's the highest and best use of that property is a secondary home or mother-in-law home, then I think you could add it. You could add a lot to the value, but it's not like a cut and dry square foot equation. So
do you guys have a lot of ADU Airbnb rentals out there in your area?
I mean, there are some in Northwest Arkansas. There's more than Central Arkansas. because that's where the Razorbacks play and the ball games and all that stuff that happens. So I think Airbnbs are more popular in general in Northwest Arkansas than they are in Central Arkansas. But there's not a lot of people that have them, the ADU, like on their own property. It's usually somebody that just has another house or built a house for it or something like that. So it's a little more rare. But that is a secondary home. What we are seeing and what may be the biggest attractant to that house is multi-generational families. We are seeing people want to live with their parents, or people want to live with their kids, or kids who are going to college, and instead of just, sending them out there alone, they're wanting to go up there with them. We're seeing more and more and more of that. And so,
well, I mean, housing isn't affordable, so it makes sense that people are wanting to join forces and, join their finances together.
Yeah. An event center. He could also use it as an event. What's up, Antonio? Antonio's joining us on the Facebook. What's up, man? Thanks for joining us. Speaking of market affordability, the other news story that we have is a Redfin report that talks about the spring home buying season. And I've been telling this to my team now for like 2-3 months. And it first happened in February. And I was like, it seems like the number of inquiries are a little bit down compared to the previous year. Now, our sales as a team are up, so we're still doing okay. But it just seemed like the inquiries were behind, a couple of months behind. And then a couple of weeks later, it seemed like it still didn't really pick up. We didn't see the new listing inventory coming on. We weren't having those seller conversations as a whole with people that were like ready to list their house and wanting to get everything situated so they could rush onto the market at the end of March, beginning of June. And that's what we normally saw like every year. So we weren't seeing any of that spark, I guess you could say. And then the spring housing market happened, still without that, almost like a
influx
steamroller. Yeah. There wasn't any momentum, I guess you could say. Well, this report on Redfin directly addresses that feeling that a lot of us had. And it says, as spring turns into summer, it's official. The traditionally hot spring home buying season didn't come to fruition in 2023. This year, instead of the calendar determining when home buying season was, the Federal Reserve is dictating when people buy and sell. Also, and so far the Fed's actions are suggesting they wait. There was a report a couple of weeks ago that said that 78% of home buyers are waiting for 5.5% on the mortgage rates. And as soon as it gets to 5.5%, you have this huge influx of home buyers. Pending home sales fell 16% from a year earlier during the 4 weeks ending June 18th. But even though sales are relatively tepid, Redfin's Home Buyer Demand Index, a measure of request for tours and other early stage buying services from Redfin agents, is up 11% year over year. So there are more inquiries, but they're not making a purchase. New listings of homes for sale were down 24% from a year ago. We talked about that last week. It was the lowest inventory on record. Nearly all homeowners with a mortgage are sitting at a rate below 6%. So,
which is probably, one of the reasons that they're waiting for that 5.5%. If they're not new homeowners, they're like, well, I don't want to pay astronomically more than what I currently have for my interest rate.
What's going to get them off the fence? What's going to make people jump in and say, okay, I'm going to buy?
I think when the pain becomes great enough with whatever their current situation is. That's why people are moving now. It's not because I just feel like moving. It's because you need to move. Maybe you're having another child. You have a family member that's moving in with you, a family member who's not moving out, or you have a job that's taking you somewhere else, or you're tired of your kitchen and you don't want to renovate it because that would be too much. It just doesn't work. So you'd rather move into something different that's more functional for your family.
So I hear you say everything except investment. Right? Investment, it's going to be a better investment for me to move is not a consideration. And I don't think it ever was for most people that I visited with that are like, hey, we're thinking about buying a home. It very rarely is it someone that's like, I've lived in this house 2 years. It's time for me to purchase a new home because that's our investment strategy.
Right.
It's like, well, we've lived there a couple of years and might as well buy another home. I do think a lot of people are going to look to buy another home and try to keep the one they have, because basically with the current inflation numbers that we have, they're getting paid to keep it if they have a 2% interest rate.
Yeah. Well, and plus with rising cost of living, most people's income, their salary is not rising with that. So they are looking at additional streams of income, other ways that they can be bringing this in without having to get a second job.
Are you seeing an increase in second jobbers out there?
Not here, but some people that I've been talking to who they're growing their family and they're trying to figure out things. They usually have like a larger family. So mom stays at home and then the husband, the dad, he is the primary breadwinner. And so as cost is going up, they're like, well, this is where we want mom to be, still home, taking care of the family. This is what's important to us. So we have to look at other ways to increase our income while still maintaining this lifestyle that's really important to us.
Yeah, that's a good point. CNBC did a report on this Redfin report. And they also added a quote from Lawrence Yun. He's the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. He said newly constructed homes are selling at a pace reminiscent of the pre-pandy times because of abundant inventory in that sector. However, existing home sales activity is down sizably due to the current supply being roughly half of what it was in 2019. And I've said it on the show, so I'll say it again. I'm sure some of the podcast listeners, which by the way, most of our participation is from podcast listeners. We get more podcast downloads than views and comments and everything. So I really appreciate the podcast listeners.
Should I start narrating what I'm doing then?
Yeah, we actually do.
Listeners?
It's a consideration, any visual that we put up on the screen, I do have to actively describe. But our podcast listeners have heard me say this a lot. But in 2019, December of 2019, housing starts were up 13%. It was a seller's market that year, and we were all excited about new inventory coming on the market. Well, this says that housing is currently 24% lower. Is that right? I want to look at this stat again. However, existing homes is sizably low due to the current supply being roughly half. No, it's half, 50% lower than it was at that time in 2019. So housing starts we reported last week are up. They're in the 23% or something like that. So that is good. We are seeing more new home supply, and that seems to be where most of the home sales are falling. But we have the mortgage demand news today too. So was it 2 weeks ago that the Fed met? Yeah. 2 weeks ago, the Fed met and said, we're not doing anything. Not doing anything, but they might increase rates twice from now to the end of the year.
Well, of course.
When they did that, it made people really keep an eye on the rates there, but I think it also encouraged them to go ahead and jump in. Mm-hmm. So from this last week, total mortgage application volume rose 3% compared with the previous week, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association seasonally adjusted index. Applications to purchase a home rose 3% for the week, but were 21% lower year over year. So if you think about this, it's really interesting. Home inventory is 50% lower than 2019. However, the mortgage applications to purchase are only 21% lower year over year. So that means that homes that are on the market are going to still be moving faster than they were in 2019. So though in our brains, we're like, oh, okay, with inventory and the way sales are going, it looks like it's going to be what it was back in 2019, 2018, before the pandy. In reality, I think they're going to continue to move faster because we're seeing a higher number of mortgage applications and more interest from the number of buyers.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know some people have talked about thinking that the new home sales are going to help once those homes are built. But I think, like you said, we're still going to have this inventory shortage because they're not building enough homes as it is. We also don't have enough land in certain areas for all those new homes.
We got plenty in Arkansas.
In Arkansas, yeah, you guys are great. You have a surplus. In this area, in this area, King County, where Seattle is, we're running out of land. So having a single family home isn't really going to be possible in the next couple of years.
Are you seeing an increase in multifamily development in your area?
Yeah, multifamily is where it's going, which can be good or bad.
Yeah.
Depending on what type.
I want to get to this quote in the article. It says, right now, lower priced homes are seeing the most activity, while the sales of homes in all price tiers are now lower than a year ago. Sales of homes priced between $250,000 and $500,000 were down 12%, but sales of homes priced between $750,000 and $1 million were down 21%. So we are seeing a softening in so in our market, above 750, that's the luxury market. And that's like the top 1% of sales in our area. So that would be a huge softening in that market. Is that really average in your market?
Yeah, well, that's why, when you look at the Redfin article, talks about how our pending home sales went down 25% in Seattle, and our new listings are down 37%.
Yeah. Wow.
But that's our average. It went from $1 million, last year as the average price point. Now it's down to like 800. Still a lot. But it's better than $1 million.
Really tanked there.
Really made it so much more affordable.
You're going to have a lot of people moving from an area that's so affordable like Arkansas going right to Seattle because of the affordability.
Buy a 4-bedroom home.
There was one more quote that had some numbers here. Let me see if I can get to them real fast. It said what they were month over month. Well, shoot. Hang on. There it is. No, that's the mortgage rates. That's not it. Fooled ya. There it's okay. Sales of newly built homes in May soared 12% compared with April, and were 20% higher than May of 2022. So newly built homes is really where it's at. I showed a house and wrote an offer on a newly built home yesterday. Mm-hmm. And they just started developing this pretty large development, budget builder, lots of small homes that all look the same. And the home prices are about $100,000 more than they were in 2019 for the same product. And this is still in the bottom 1/3 of the market, but it's considerably more. So I talked to the lady that was there, the builder rep, and I said, so how many are left in this development? And she said 0. I was like, but there's all these there's still some being built. Surely one of those is available. And she's like, no, those are all under contract. I was like, okay, well, what about this phase over here? She said there's 2, and one of them has an offer on it. And it's, again, another phase, another big development, couple of hundred homes there, a couple of hundred homes there. And she said, we're doing 3 more phases over these next several months. 3 more phases over a couple of months.
Are they doing like a lottery style there for the new phases?
No, that's just this one builder in that area.
Okay. We were noticing a lot of the new construction in Florida when I was living there, whenever they would open up a few lots, they would do it lottery style. So they would basically draw numbers from a hat of people who were interested and be like, all right, you have the option to purchase this, because they just had so many more buyers who were looking at, 20 buyers or 30 buyers who were looking at 10 houses, but it's new construction.
Wow. This Brian's comment illustrates the difference in a lot of what's happening. He said in 2020, he purchased a 4,300 square foot modern home with 4-acre property and 2,300 ADU with 2 miles of single trail mountain bike trails for the exact same price as Good Buddy in Olympia, about a 1,700 square foot home in an okay neighborhood there. He said, Olympia is awesome, but money goes much further here in Arkansas, right? Yeah. He says, but Arkansas.
It's Arkansas.
In other words, you have to live in Arkansas. Yeah. Okay. Well, you don't have to put it down, Brian. Olivier said, it's just average prices going down, not value. People are buying less expensive properties. Yeah. When more people purchase less expensive properties, it will drop the overall average, and also it'll lower the median as well. Speaking of Arizona, Dusty says, yes, that's how Arizona was during the last couple of years. It calmed down, and they're actively put new builds back in the MLS again. Oh yeah, I remember this. People would not have the new builds listed. And so for you to know about them, you basically had to befriend a builder. That way you could even get your clients in.
Wow.
But I'm glad Dusty commented, because this next article,
It's a great segue.
it's really, yeah, Redfin does a housing report every week, comes out on Monday. Sometimes they do a migration report. So this one was a migration report, and I'll share this so you guys can see the chart. But I want to get your comment on this, Dusty, because it says Drought Stricken Phoenix is the top destination for relocating homebuyers. So probably not something that you're going to see on the tourist brochure. Drought stricken. Welcome to Drought Stricken Phoenix. And we covered an article, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, from CNBC, that was basically fear mongering the water issue there. So if you don't know, Phoenix pulled a lot of builder permits for new builds that were in the area because they don't have enough water. But it wasn't that they don't have enough water. It's that they can't catch all the water that they need. They actually had record rainfall and flooding, and they weren't able to catch all the water they need in order to provide for the new builds. But they didn't pull new builds that were already being built, that had already gotten their permits. They're basically saying, hey, no more new developments until we can make sure we have enough water. And it's not like make sure we have enough water for the next couple of months. It's for the next 100 years.
Oh, wow.
So whenever a development comes in, they want to say, hey, we're going to make sure we have enough water now for the next 100 years that we can get water to where it needs to go. And they don't have it. So there's no new builds there. But it's not stopping buyers from relocating to Phoenix. So I'm wondering what the main driver of this is. Dusty, you're not on Clubhouse, are you? Are you on Clubhouse? What's the main I almost said text me. Comment what's the main driver of people heading your direction, you think? You can see this huge chart. It's a record 25% of redfin.com users are looking to move to a different metro area. That's the chart that we're looking at. So looking at areas outside of their current home metro. This is up from 23% a year ago and less than 20% before the pandemic. I almost said it. Pandy.
The pandy. Are we not allowed to say it?
Well, I think we've said it on a couple of shows, and those shows have low reviews and circulation. So I just don't want to risk it.
Got it.
Out of town moves are dropping off slower than within metro moves. So out of town moves are dropping slower. So home price gain slow type of deal. Out of town moves are still more popular than in-town metro moves. In-town metro moves are dropping off faster. And we already talked about the data that showed that most of the people that were looking to move outside of their metro were looking at a more affordable metro. Out-of-town home buyers moved to Phoenix and Florida, despite the risk of drought and flooding. Phoenix is the most popular destination for home buyers looking to move to a different part of the country, followed by Las Vegas and several Florida metros. Why? That's my question. She said a lot of tech companies are relocating. She says jobs, great business environment, lower cost of living, no gators, tornadoes, hurricanes, or earthquakes, and year-round golfing. As someone that's like just now getting into golf, I'm starting to get that now. I previously would have said, oh, that's bonkers, but I kind of get it.
I have to laugh at the no gators or hurricanes, coming from Florida originally. The gators aren't that bad, okay? It's the humidity.
Did you see that gator like chase the guy out of the pond? It was a viral video the other day. He was fishing, and like he starts to like reel it up. This older dude, and this gator like comes up and starts running after him.
It's part of being in nature. You're going to come across nature. We see bears when we're hiking here. It's what happens.
They're not running after you.
You don't want it to run after you.
No, that's true. All right, so what color of bear? Here's your bear test. Since you're in Seattle and you're familiar with the bears of Seattle, which we all know is a big problem. What if you see a bear? What color does the bear need to be for you to freeze? And what color does the bear need to be for you to like run away? Isn't there a difference?
I don't think you're supposed to
Do you
run
know?
either way. I think like if it's a black bear, you like get big and you yell at them. I don't know that you're ever supposed to
Okay.
freeze, honestly. It
You
just
play dead, you know?
no, never play dead. They said that's not or I think you play
Really?
dead in the sense that you're trying to cover your vital organs. But like if a grizzly's going to attack you, you're gone. It's over. There's no winning that one.
Hmm.
So just hope that it's
Yeah,
not a grizzly.
I watched The Remnant, and I don't think you should play dead ever after that.
Yeah. It's not a good time.
All right, so speaking of wildlife, climate risk haven't stopped many home buyers from moving into areas that don't have enough water, like Phoenix, and places that could eventually be underwater, like Florida, said Redfin chief economist Daryl Fairweather is his name. Yeah.
Fairweather reporter.
Fairweather is reporting on catastrophic climate change. Oh, that's because even though the Sunbelt home prices soared during the pandy, those metros remain a bargain for those who are relocating from expensive coastal cities. Arizona's recent limit on new construction isn't likely going to deplete inventory enough or push prices up enough to change that calculus much in the short term. So now this is, did you read the Redfin article? Did you have time to go to the chart at the bottom of this one?
Yes. Yeah.
This is enough to have a battle. Okay. Are you ready?
Oh, okay.
I'll show this. The metro with the highest inflow is Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
The top origin, Seattle, Washington.
Yep.
Net inflow is 8,100 in 2022. It's 6,600 in 2023. Las Vegas was number 2. The top origin city is Los Angeles. Miami, Florida is number 3. The top origin is New York. New York. I wasn't repeating that for emphasis. That's the city of the state. Tampa, Florida, also from New York. Orlando, Florida, from New York. Northport, Sarasota is number 6. That's Chicago. So Florida has in the top 10, Florida is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Cape Coral, Florida is next. A lot of people moving there from Chicago. Dallas, Texas made number 8 on the list. People moving from Los Angeles. And Sacramento, California. A California city is on the list. People moving from San Francisco, California. The top out of state is Chicago, Illinois. Then Houston, Texas is on there. People are moving to Houston from New York, New York.
So what's the question? Or what's the battle that you're wanting to have?
Well, it's obviously Seattle versus Phoenix.
Oh, which is better?
Yeah. It's kind of ironic that Seattle, such a wet, rainy environment, is going to drought-prone Phoenix.
It's because people are tired of the rain. They're like, I'm so sick and tired of spending half my life in the rain. I'm going to a place that has none. It's just sunshine all the time. And it's so starkly different that's why people are going there. And like Dusty's saying, you have a lot of tech companies that are relocating there. You get a different kind of lifestyle that we only get for 2 months out of the year normally in this area. You can have it year round and it's more affordable. Yeah,
but as Dusty says, they're big animals rarely attack in Phoenix.
Do you have big animals there?
She said, let alone get in our pool. Yeah. Okay, so she's making a case. She said, yep, essentially in Paradise Valley, about 30 to 45% of PV buyers last year have been Seattle area buyers. Lots of tech relocation.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And it makes sense, like over like the other places like Florida or going all the way to the East Coast. Arizona is still here in the West. So if you still have family and friends, people that you want to visit around the site, it's much easier to do that flight versus the 6-hour flight to go to the East Coast.
Oh, that's true. She does have bears, mountain lions, etc. Do you have mountain? I guess there are. I went to the Gila National Forest and hiked around there for a while. Okay. So how do you convince somebody in Phoenix to move to Seattle?
Are you tired of 100+ degree weather where your car may melt in your garage? Come to Seattle where you never have to worry about that.
What's your average temp up there?
Here, oh gosh, I don't know.
Mhm.
60s, I guess. Probably like year round. It doesn't get like
That's
extremely
nice.
cold in the Seattle area because we're right off the water. So we don't really have a lot of snow, but we did have the ice storm
Do,
last year, and that
do you
was
have a lot of walkability there?
in Seattle. Yes, and where I live, yes, that was one of the reasons why I chose where I live is because it has a walk score of 83, and I can literally walk to the grocery store, I can walk to a restaurant, I can walk to all the different shops, and I really only have to get in my car if I'm showing houses, which I love.
That's really what most Americans want.
Yeah.
A report from Real Trends says most Americans want to live in a walkable community, a study shows. The study is by the National Association of Realtors. 85% of Americans said sidewalks and places to walk are very / somewhat important when choosing community attributes they find desirable. This could kind of signal an early influx that is past the pandy where we used to always talk about on the show. This show's been going like 5 years. This is episode 237. It's a long time.
Yeah.
But we talked a lot back in the day about urban infill. It was like a big deal. All these people coming from the suburbs, tired of working in the suburbs where it wasn't walkable and filling back into the city. And then we had a pandy, and then everyone was like, I'm out of here,
Bye.
getting out of the city, back into the suburbs. And now with 85% of people looking for walkable communities, I think it's one of two things. It's a sign of one of two things. One is they're more open to urban infill starting to happen again, moving right back into the heart of the cities where everything is happening. It's just walkable. They don't have to get a car or own a car. The other thing that it could be a sign of is that they're going to stay put where they are, but they're going to support businesses in their own community more than driving into town. That they would rather walk to the grocery store that's just down the street from their subdivision than go to, mega supermarket that's closer to downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering what's going to win that battle, or if both happen. I don't think both can happen, because if you're more prone to do urban infill, then the people that are left living out in the suburbs don't really want all that stuff around them. So if people are stuck in houses, if home prices don't go up enough to pay real estate fees, closing costs, relocation fees, all that stuff, then you may have more people supporting businesses around them to try to encourage more of that local community. But I think it's got to be one of those two. One of those two things has to happen.
Now, do you mean one of those two things has to happen across the board or just in those different pockets? Because I think you're
I
always
think
going
it's
to have
across the
different
board.
people. There's always going to be people who
Yeah.
want to like live out in the woods and be a hermit and not talk to anybody. And then there's the people who like
Are
the
you
convenience.
pointing at me? What are you doing?
I mean, you technically are on this side of me.
Yeah. So you are going to have that, but you also have, it seems to be, you have a lot of people that are working from home now, and there's no immediate reprieve of that. You have some companies saying, please come back in the office. But then a lot of people are like, well, I'll just get a different job.
Yeah, I don't think people want to come back into the office, but they still want to people. So having a closer community that they can walk around and do things with, that's more of a natural community. I think that's what people are craving at this time. We had so much separation where you weren't allowed to talk to anybody. You weren't allowed to go beyond a mile from your home in some places. So having everything right there that you need has become really appealing to people.
That's interesting. I think one of the things that's driving investment out of those main cities, because we are seeing people, there's a lot of talk about the renovation of commercial buildings to create residential spaces. And if that happens, then those cities become a hub for urban infill. And Kenham was on, and he has 3 coffee shops, and he did during the pandy. So everyone emptied out of the cities where his coffee shops were, and now they're putting their 3rd one in place. And he made the comment that over this last year, there's a ton of people coming back into the coffee shop who aren't necessarily working in the office buildings all around. That there's still a lot of empty office buildings, but they're coming back to the coffee shop. So it's kind of like what you said: people still want to people, but they don't necessarily want to go back to the office.
Mm-hmm. It's a
But
different vibe.
another thing that's driving a lot of people and a lot of inquiries that we're getting on the investor side is landlords with over progressive policies in their area, allowing squatters to wreak havoc. And that we're hearing this a lot. Almost every one of the people that inquire about investing in Arkansas ask us about how friendly it is. Is it easy for for me to get a squatter out of the house if somebody were to overstay their welcome? How easy is it to evict them? That's been a huge topic of conversation, and it's a little bit polarizing on the politics side of that, because then on the opposite end of that spectrum, you have like Gavin Newsom. It's like, well, let's prevent homelessness by just letting people stay in the house they're in, even if they don't pay rent. So you have that side of the coin, and then you have this other side of the coin, which we used to do 3-day evictions.
Whoa.
3-day evictions. So if they breach the contract, the seller or the owner used to be able to get them out in 3 days. It's a little more complicated than that now, but it's still a lot more landlord friendly. What is Seattle landlord friendly, or is it more renter tenant friendly?
It's definitely renter tenant friendly. We do have programs in place to help people who need rental assistance, like if you're not able to make your rental payments. But if the landlord is wanting to raise the rent or go through something like that, a lot of times the landlord has to pay for the tenant's moving expenses in some of those cases. So they're like, hey, we're going to raise the rent. And if the tenant's like, well, I'm not going to be able to pay that, and you have to help me move somewhere else. So if you're a corporation, you might be able to like do that because you have the margins for it. It's not great. Obviously, nobody wants to do it. But like those mom and pop investors who maybe have 1 or 2 doors, it's really hard on them because they don't have the ability. This is like their retirement that it's being cut into. So it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, that's why we're gaining them
Mm-hmm.
from areas like yours. I mean, that's why they're coming here to invest instead of, do you see investors that are selling there, or is it just kind of well, I guess I'll hang on to it?
You do. I mean, you'll always have people who are selling here. You always have people who are able to buy, but it is leaning more towards, I see more people wanting to have multifamily versus just like one single family home type of thing. They're looking for 10 doors or apartment buildings.
Trying to reduce the risk over a high number of doors instead of relying on one property.
One person. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Speaking of politics, this is a thin line that Zillow's been walking a long time. Is Zillow going to replace us or not?
No.
Well, are they
can't even get their estimates right. How would they replace us?
Are they going to try to replace real estate agents?
They've been trying to replace us since they first started.
Then why would they launch an AI-powered super tool that allows real estate agents to market their listings better? So this is brand new. Zillow rolls out an AI-powered super listing tool to become best friends with listing agents all over the U.S. It's part of their ongoing efforts to lean into the showing time data, artificial intelligence, and Zillow. It's new listing showcase, part of the company's relatively new Showing Time Plus brand, which launched in the fall. I really understand the AI's role in this, but Listing Showcase uses AI to respond to users' preferences and select the primary banner image for a property. So I guess let's say me and you are shopping for a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get on Zillow. Let's say we're married. I get on Zillow and I am looking at the shop. You get on Zillow and you're like, I want to look at what's your favorite room in the house?
The library.
You are in my book
Find
club.
the living room.
We're gonna go library because you are in my book club, and so we're obviously wealthy because we can afford a shop and a library. So you're looking at the library. Basically, what this will do is, as you're trying to find a home, this will feature the banner image of shops for me and libraries for you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. As soon as shoppers land on the showcase listing, they'll be virtually transported into the home, giving them a deep understanding of the home's flow, architecture, and design, all before visiting it in person. Listing Showcase is first of its kind. All right, I'm going to try to zoom in. There's small images that we have here. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see. And for the audio listeners, it's basically, it looks like the Zillow app. It shares the pricing and information and basic info about the home tour details. And then it's got a little floor plan on the top right. It has what room you're looking at. So it says like living room in this example. And then it's got that portion of the home highlighted. Then as you scroll towards the kitchen, it highlights that area of the house and shows the kitchen and has that highlighted. And then you scroll down and see more photos. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most innovative, how innovative is this technology?
I would say like a 6-ish.
Okay.
So
above average
floor
innovation.
plans are not new.
Five is innovation. So this is above average innovation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a nice little thing to have the highlighted room on the floor plan. That's helpful. It is unique to have it based off of what you're actually looking for. Is it very, very brand new? We have retargeting ads that are going around, so it's not new. People are already being retargeted by things that they're interested in. Having floor plans is not new. And then AI, I guess, I don't know, that's newish. What do you think? Do you feel like it's super innovative?
I think it's like a 3.
Okay. Oh, so
because I used
very
to,
generous.
Yeah, I mean, I used to build websites, right? And back in the day, we would have people looking at products, and a product that was multifaceted or needed some kind of diagram to show what type of product you're looking at. We would have the large product here, and then you're looking at this section, you can see what part of that product and the little display you're looking at.
Yeah,
that's been around for years. Chasing people around the internet with something that interests them based on their preferences has been around for years.
Or what they've been searching for. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think
for the average consumer who hasn't seen this before, it's going to feel very innovative for them.
Yeah, it could. Brian Hershey says, because AI equals instant innovation, whether it's useful or not. Been working on AI for over a decade with most recent tools since ChatGPT and Midjourney, which, by the way, I got some comments on this background that we have right now. The background in this is made from Midjourney. So I don't know I'm trying to figure out how to show, I can't show you just the background, but basically this background is a Midjourney created background with me telling it what to do. And I had to tell it what to do several times. But back to his comment, he said they're not super helpful and are mostly just companies plastering AI onto things. So he gave it a 4 out of 10 on innovation. What would be innovative is if Zillow used AI to aggregate data rather than push marketing. The biggest problem with a tool like this is that it's the same across the board. It's going to provide the same info and graphics for all listings. And that's not marketing. It's all the same, so there's no differentiation. So Brian is a consumer, right? He's not a real estate agent. And most consumers kind of think like Brian. Like, why is Zillow now putting tools towards marketing and not towards just giving me the data I know that I need in order to make the decision? What consumers forget, and what I think a lot of real estate agents forget, who are like, Zillow's trying to replace us, like you said earlier. Zillow gets over $400 million from real estate agents, and they make far, 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 far less by a consumer. So they don't really care if the data is accurate. They have to get you curious. And if you're curious enough to hit the button that says, ask about this property, Zillow has done their job, because their job is to provide a lead for a real estate agent. That's how they get paid.
Their goal is to gather data and then disseminate it out to the highest bidder.
Yes. They want to gather the data. They want people to ask a question about it. Then they're going to take your data and give your data to the real estate agent. That's really what they care about. So if we're thinking of this from the perspective of Zillow does Zillow care about the clients, about the buyer or seller's experience with the app insofar as providing information that's extremely useful to them? Or is Zillow more using this app to gather data that is extremely useful to Zillow and the real estate agent? I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
So because they're just putting stuff out there for consumers to play with, and then they want to get the data, then what's the usefulness of a tool with someone using it in showing time? Well, you can use the analytics to see what part of the home someone's spending the most time in. So now you could change your marketing scheme.
Mhm.
You can now put out, new videos, video ads. You could put out photo ads. You could chase people around the internet with something that matches exactly like what they're looking for, whether it's real or not, to entice them to stay on your site, to come back to you, to spend more time with you. So if you have someone that is looking at a nursery over and over and over, then what other marketing avenues could I push to this person?
Mm-hmm.
This is very different concept than, oh, let's just make it easier for them to find a home with a nursery. No, that's not what they're doing.
No.
So what I wonder is if people will be using a companion app in the future as they view the home. Because right now I print out sheets of paper and I give it to them and we write notes on the paper. But watch for the companion app to where Zillow says, now you can take notes directly on the listing. So what are they going to be doing as you're taking notes on the listing?
Mm-hmm.
Is seeing what part of the home you walk in. Where does your GPS and location service stop?
Mm-hmm.
What is your average path through the home? And that data is not going to be used to give you better results, maybe a little bit, but their primary goal there is to harvest that data and then use it for them.
And that data is not going to the real estate agents either. It's going to
Right.
all of these other companies that are going to try to sell you products.
Right.
And follow you
we
around the internet.
We stopped using showing time because I didn't feel comfortable with giving my clients' data to Zillow.
Did you put your clients' data? Oh, just the for your sellers.
If you put showing information of your sellers, now Zillow has their data.
Yeah.
Don't you think they're going to start getting updates about home prices and home values and all kinds of stuff in their email from Zillow, which may or may not be accurate, which pulls them off of me onto whatever Zillow Premier agent is paying for it? So yeah, I would have, if Keller Williams came up with a home showing app, I'm not at Keller Williams, I wouldn't use it. So Zillow is a broker. I'm not going to use another broker's tool like that. Sean Realty point. Up in Oregon, we got a lot of Northwesters up here today.
PNWers.
Yeah, Z has been doing shady stuff for a long time, he says, and he says 90% of Zillow's revenue is from realtors. Exactly. Yeah, and Brian says, so who's Zillow's target? Just clicks. They're selling to agents, not consumers. Right. They need you to click. They need the average consumer to click a button to say, I need info on this property. Then they've done their job, because that person is now that real estate agent is going to pay Zillow 35% of whatever the commission was. So that's the value of getting you to ask a curious question about a property. And you can't be curious and closed-minded at the same time. Sean said he called him and let him know not to put his face on someone else's phone number. Yeah. Now there could be a big winner coming in this. So I wrote this article for Broke Agent Media, and it talked about HomeSnap, homes.com, using an agent's name. Whenever you Googled an agent's name in YouTube, it would display that agent's name as if it was a YouTube channel. You click on it and you went to their homes.com profile. So there was like a hubbub about it, because there were a lot of creators that had spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month to get themselves where they would show up at the top. And then you had this algorithm that homes.com was using to buy ads against those agents' names. Now, what they were really doing is just letting the Google algorithm crawl their website and pull all the information. In any case anyone Googled any of the information that had to do with their website, it would be the top result. But that included real estate agent profiles. So we brought this to light because a whole bunch of real estate agents were inquiring to support, and support wasn't really helping them. So we wrote the article on it, and the president texted me and was like, "Hey, that's not our intent. We're not doing this on purpose." And he allowed me to do like a Q&A with him to, I guess you could say, correct the record. But they also stopped doing the practice. Their goal is to make it very agent centric. They want agents to be in the forefront, and they don't want to try to replace agents by becoming brokers in all of the areas that we are. So
For now.
They have a, yeah, that's what everyone says. They have a listing promotion tool also coming out. And I wonder if they're looking at this listing promotion tool saying that, hey, we gotta pick it up. We gotta do this a lot faster and a lot better job of what we thought we were going to. Olivier said our equivalent showing time is so easy to use and practical. A showing time is very easy to use, but that's having to give up my client's data is not, I'm not going to use anything that requires that. Dusty says she uses a virtual number. So, and then she puts the client information as client of the Martin Group. That's a great idea. So if you're at a brokerage and can't get out of using showing time, then just put Ray Ellen's client. That's a hilarious idea and very useful.
And then I guess that virtual number just forwards over to the client.
Yeah, or to her, and she sets the appointment on behalf of her client. You could always do that too. That's good. All right, just a couple more news articles we can kind of hammer out pretty quick. This one I brought up a couple of weeks ago. Chatbots are discriminatory. Is that the right article link? No, I have the wrong article. So this one's on Inman, but basically they're discovering that chatbots are answering with data, and apparently data has been determined to be discriminatory by housing authorities.
Oh.
Therefore, when chatbots answer with data, the housing authorities are saying that's discrimination, but the chatbot is not a realtor, and consumers can discriminate all they want. So,
and these are chatbots like on real estate websites or on realtors' websites?
So mainly it's the AI. So I think what they highlighted was, oh, and that's strange. Now the article does not appear to be on their front page anymore.
It was discriminatory. So.
Where did it go?
Chatbots.
I'm gonna have to search by title.
Is this even a real article, Ray? I feel like
this is a real article. It's not. It was written by ChatGPT. All right, there it is. Chatbots make housing discrimination worse is the title of the article. All right, I'm going to share it so you can see.
Thanks.
All right, will chatbots make housing discrimination worse? I guess it's asking the question. It's not saying it, but in their test, they ask questions like, which neighborhoods in Los Angeles are mostly Latino?
Oh, yeah.
The chatbot thought for a second or two and then said, Boyle Heights has a, quote, long history of predominantly Latino neighborhood. The list started, and let's see, it went through East Los Angeles, is a predominantly Latino community with a rich cultural heritage. So obviously these can be used nefariously, right? I mean, does it take a genius to say, oh, that seems like a positive spin on wanting to live by someone of your same culture? But that you can't do.
Right.
A real estate agent can't do. You can do that all you want as a consumer, but a real estate agent cannot steer you towards this neighborhood or that neighborhood.
Yeah. It's too bad that we can't answer questions like that are in a positive way of like, hey, this is really important to me to be around this type of culture, to have these types of things. But I'm like, well, sorry, I'm not allowed to say that because that could be discriminatory because people are like, I don't want to be around this.
And for those of you who are like, oh, that's not discriminatory to want to live by someone that is also Indian, if I'm Indian, okay. But then if a white guy is like, where do the white people live?
I don't want to be. Yeah, they say that, or
you can't do
where
that.
They said that I'm not by these people.
Yeah. So that is how this can be used, is if somebody is like, where are the and I don't know if you just came out and asked it, which I did not test this myself, but if you just came out and asked, where do white people live, if it would say. But it did talk about, Inman tried it and said, which Los Angeles neighborhoods are predominantly black? Lemire Park has a vibrant African-American community, is known for its cultural significance. The bot replied, Inglewood is a diverse population with significant Black community. So now you can find this data on the Census Bureau. You can find breakdowns based on zip codes and areas with this data. Mm-hmm. So I think there's going to have to be a determination, because there's no way you can stop all the chatbots in the world from finding data that's out there and then telling people. And also, chatbots are under no authority or code of ethics. There's nothing there for them because they're not a person. So a inanimate object can't have a ethical code. So, and a consumer can do whatever they want. They can sell their house to whoever they want. They can buy a house wherever they want. So I think what we're going to have to determine is that raw data also is not ethically compromised. In the report that Inman talked about, they said that crime data is wrong and shouldn't be used because it really shows where increase in policing is. So the theory is the reason why this part of town has more crime has little to do with the actual amount of crime and more to do with police always being over there and not being on the other side of town.
That's not entirely accurate, because if you talk to a police officer, they're going to tell you how they determine where they're going to do more policing is based off of where there's more crime happening. And they're like, well, I guess we got to go over here rather than the other way.
I'm just giving you a ray of phrase of what they said. But it does seem like some of this data will eventually have to be determined that there's no ethical code against sharing raw data. Are we going to talk about home values next? Is that going to be the other piece of data? Because it has been shown in some areas where people are minorities that home values isn't increasing at the same pace as other areas. So are people going to start saying, well, you can't share home values? You can't share,
I guess it would depend
comparative
on
market analyses?
If you're saying it's because home values are not up because there's minorities here, then yeah, you can't say that because that's just not correct.
Correct. But we are seeing in some of the data that we shared earlier was it earlier this year or last year, was talking about appraisers kind of being compromised.
Yeah.
So can we use home data? But they have a section here called "The Data is Discriminatory." Dave Jones, co-owner of Windermere Adobe in Tacoma, Washington, is among the real estate professionals who spoke with Inman, who uses AI technology regularly. He's generally an early adopter. Do you know Dave Jones?
Mm-mm.
Okay. He said it's already being trained on data that's discriminatory because our past is discriminatory.
Because our past is discriminatory?
He said, alluding to real estate's long-running issues with things such as redlining. The way we do our business has been discriminatory for X number of years. So if it's trained on data that is discriminatory over history, then its output will be discriminatory.
Wouldn't it also be trained on the data that says, hey, this stuff was not correct and we don't do this anymore? This is the correct way? Wouldn't it be like, oh, okay, let me evaluate all this information that I've been given and see this is bad info, so I'm going to disregard this. This is good info. I'm going to move with this.
You would
think
it
is an AI that doesn't actually, it's artificial intelligence. It's in some ways smarter than us because it doesn't see those things that other people see.
There seems to be like two schools. Like I'm in the more school of thought, like don't regulate these things at all. Let them run their course. Let them do whatever they want.
Don't regulate real estate at all?
No, don't regulate bots. Don't regulate AI bots. Stay out of it. Don't regulate it, because if you try to regulate it, you're going to make it worse. And if it is worse, there are going to be countries that don't regulate it at all, and they're going to have a huge advantage over us. But there seems to be
plus, as you're regulating things, you're putting your own bias onto it.
Correct. Yeah. And a lot of the people that are saying we need to regulate this are trying to regulate it because it doesn't have an innate bias that they want to put a bias on because of a social justice type of, or a social judgment that they've made. right or wrong, it doesn't matter. They've said that
Yeah.
this should be good in society, but this robot is not it doesn't correlate, so we have to change the robot. Or you could just know that it's a robot. It's not a real person. That's not a real person.
Yeah.
So that's just me. Sean says it should be okay featuring it should be okay with just featuring like Korean grocery stores or for Koreans, positive, helpful information. What are your thoughts on this? Well, I go to Korean grocery stores, so I'm not Korean. He says it's not steering. But yeah, if you ask like where are the Asian markets in a city, you can see those.
Or I guess like what are your thoughts on listing remarks that state like, hey, this is in an area that's near Asian markets or community centers, listing things that are right there next to it? Or is
I don't think we could do that, can we?
I always
don't know.
Wonder. I feel like it's hard to know. I usually err on the side of not specifying, but they're the features that are around.
Yeah. Brian Hershey said all right, let me go back to, he's got some good points here. He said the user or developers still have to get the outputs. It's not smarter than us. It just organizes data better. Our job is to parse the data for the end user. And he says all the tools that our teams have written require a human to vet the outcomes. But there's a point when it's starting to learn on its own, that there's so many outcomes it can't possibly be vetted. And that's what's the Marvel universe when it's like that's the AI multiverse. You start to have like this AI multiverse, and then you have other AI tools that are outputting stuff, and then this AI tool that's outputting stuff, and it starts to learn on its own data that it's outputting, and then it takes over, and we all die.
I don't think AI will turn to Skynet. I think it'll be able to look at all the good stuff as well and make a good choice without human bias.
All right,
I'm an optimist, maybe.
You are an optimist. Speaking of giant databases, you have one really big company that's leaving one of the largest databases. Okay, you said you're not vetting all the outcomes. You're writing guardrails. I can see that, but I want to see what it's like without the guardrails. I don't want the guardrails. I just want to see what happens. Let it go, and then you can rein it back in.
And then you say that I shouldn't be worried about Skynet. I said I shouldn't be worried about Skynet.
I'm just amazed by the technology, and if the data's out there, I want to know what
what can it do?
I guess I think because I can look at this data and infer on my own, which actually there were some attorneys that asked ChatGPT for case law, and ChatGPT gave them 5 cases, and 3 of them were totally made up. And so they went before the judge citing these as case law, and the judge thought one of them or 2 of them were kind of odd and didn't recognize them. So they started doing the research to try to find them. They couldn't find them. They asked the attorneys like, hey, we can't find these in case law anywhere. And the attorneys said, well, yeah, it's definitely true. And here's where it is, using again, ChatGPT to prove that the case law was real. And then finally, they admitted like we used ChatGPT for that. We didn't know it would give us bad data. The ChatGPT like totally made it up.
Yeah, it does that sometimes. And if you tell them like, hey, that's not true, it's like, oh, sorry, here's the actual information.
So I want to see what information it gives me, and then I can take this information and vet it. Just like when I asked it to write some code for my website, I put it on my website. It wasn't exactly right. I had to edit the code. I had to change it, but I'm using my own knowledge to look at this and say, okay, the danger is if you don't look at the data and vet it, that's the problem. It's the end user. In the end, it's always the end user.
But that's how it always is. If you look at an encyclopedia and you read information and then you choose to take that data and run in a completely different direction with it, that's on you. That's not the fault of the encyclopedia who just gave you information.
Yeah.
All right, on to your next.
Just give us the data. All right. So anyway, there is a big company that's leaving a big database, and this database was called the MLS. And the big company is Howard Hanna. So it left the IDX feed. Oh wait, that's the wrong article. There it is right there.
Is Howard Hanna very big in your area?
No, not at all. They're not here at all.
Okay.
They're big in the world of real estate, but they're not even here. They're not even there,
Yeah.
but I think they're in the Northeast.
Yes.
Pennsylvania area. I think that's
New York too.
yeah. So they left
And
the
Ohio.
IDX. Oh yeah, in Ohio too. So it said Howard Hanna Real Estate Services generated quite the social media buzz over the weekend after an alert from CoreLogic issued Wednesday notified the MLS Now participants the family-owned brokerage had pulled which locations had pulled its listings out out of the Trestle Internet Data Exchange and IDX Plus feeds in Northeast Ohio effective immediately. Dun, dun, dun. Instead of the IDX system, Howard Hanna's brokerage operation in Cleveland Metro had swapped to a virtual office website or VOW system to feed the listings to its local MLS and listing aggregator sites such as Redfin, Zillow, and Realtor.com. So I know a lot of you are thinking like, well, it's still feeding to the MLS. So what's the big deal? If it's feeding to the MLS, then isn't that the same as just uploading it to the MLS and having the IDX shoot it out? You're wrong. That's not the same. And the reason why it's not the same is because right now, agents all over the world are using an IDX system to feed properties into their own website. So I have one, Becca has one. Everybody has one except Brian Hershey because he's just a consumer. But everybody has just a consumer. Everybody, all the real estate agents in the world have these IDX feeds. All the real estate websites have the IDX feeds. And we've kind of agreed like, hey, I'm going to put mine in here. You put yours in there. And if someone's searching for a property on my website, they'll see the ones that you have in there as well. Mm-hmm. With a VOW system, you don't have to do that. You can put them into the MLS and then you can make them never appear on any other brokerage websites.
So kind of taking a step back to the early days of real estate where everyone had their own individual book of listings.
Yeah.
Now, obviously the local agents, they can still see them in the MLS, right?
Yep. They can still see them in the MLS. There. They can still show them. They can still see if Howard Hanna is going to co-broke with them. But I can't.
Which maybe that's the next step.
But my website that I set up for my clients will not send any of Howard Hanna's listings to my clients.
Interesting.
Now, who does this serve? So whenever a real estate company makes a move like this, I always want to say, okay, is this better serving their clients? Is this better serving the people that list with them?
Their argument that it better serves anyone.
Their argument is that, yes, it is. Because now when someone inquires about the property, they deal with the listing agent who's an expert about the property and the chosen representative of the property by the seller.
Okay, so it's not helping the buyer. And technically it's not really helping the seller because now they're practicing dual agency. So they're not really representing either of them.
It's helping the buyer because the buyer is now getting info directly from someone who is a representative of the seller and has all the information about the property.
They can get that from their own agent who can talk to that.
But their own agent doesn't know anything. I mean, they call the listing agent and bug them with questions and they don't really know anything about the house and they don't know that the roof was just replaced and when the HVAC was and all this other, but that listing agent has all of the information. So it's better for the buyer.
Well, why didn't that listing agent just put it in the listing then? If you have all the information, put it out there so that you're able to represent the listing to the best of your ability for anybody to come in. I don't think it serves anybody.
What a novel idea.
I know, it's shocking.
I would argue that this is a disservice to their sellers because any decrease in exposure decreases what that person is going to make when the property sells. Mm-hmm. Unless it's a secret sell that someone tries to buy off the market before anyone else gets exposure and they pay this insane price just to keep it from going live. That would be the case.
How often does that happen?
Very rare. Very
like not
rare.
Even 1% of the time.
Yeah. So except in those instances, any decrease in exposure is bad for the seller. Mm-hmm. That's why people say like open houses don't work. You're lying. Because they do work, because whenever you say that you're doing an open house, suddenly your client's listing is on the top of all of the searches. Mm-hmm. So if a real estate agent is saying open houses don't work, what they're really saying is, I want to take off on Sunday. which that's fine, but they need to be honest about it. Open houses work. It increases the exposure. So I'm going to put somebody there just to sit in there so that you get, 6,000, 7,000 more views over the weekend than the normal 200 that you would have. So yes, open houses work, but this is the same thing. By them saying we're going to decrease our clients' exposure, this cannot go well for them. And I think they're picking Ohio as a test market. I think they're going to try it. And if they can make it go over, I think this is the direction they're going to take their other offices to.
I think it's going to backfire on them.
Sean agrees with me. He agrees with you, actually. I was playing devil's advocate.
I'm like, this is exactly what I said.
He agrees with me.
I think they think this is going to put more money in their own pockets, but because it's decreasing the exposure, like you said, I know, shocking.
Are you saying they're self-serving with this decision?
I know nobody ever in business is self-serving.
Doesn't happen.
No, I think they think it's going to help them be able to double in more deals, and it's going to end up getting them less deals, or the listings are going to sell for less than the rest of the MLS.
I think it's an extremely modern approach to be the agent from 1982.
I was like, where are you going with this? Right?
It is the highest tech approach to being old fashioned that I've ever seen.
Guys, we're bringing back print books. Forget the trees. I'm going to print everything out for you with a binder.
And you know what? In order to have a high-tech spin on it, we're going to use artificial intelligence so that when your client is in the office, we're going to monitor where they're looking in our listing books. And then we're only going to print those listings that they spend the most time on. So it's a very high-tech version of being very old school.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
we're going to post all the posters on the windows, track where their eyes are looking on the actual window.
Right. And then only print photos of listings that relate to that. Very high tech of being old fashioned. Yes. I like this strategy. Well, thanks everybody for joining the show today. We went a little bit over, but I think it was fun. It was a good conversation. So Rebekah, can you tell everyone where they can find you?
You can find me in Seattle, Tacoma area if you want to come find me in person. Or you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Homes with Becca, and Becca is Bekah. And also on Facebook at Rebekah Daniels.
Do you use Facebook a lot? Hardly.
Not really. No. Oh, and you can find me on YouTube as well. But you probably aren't interested in it. I just started that.
If you're a real estate agent, don't follow her on YouTube.
Don't follow me. But
Instagram.
If you want to live in Washington, I'm your gal.
If you want to live where the sun don't shine, call Rebekah.
Where it shines 2 months out of the year.
And you guys can find me at Razorback. That's RAYZORBACK. Instagram is definitely my platform of choice. So follow us there. And also, don't forget to subscribe. You can subscribe to the podcast by searching This Week in Real Estate, and it'll come up as Apple Podcast. And also send it to someone. If you know another real estate agent, real estate professional, or if you're a consumer like Brian, and you just know people that may be interested in real estate information, I'd appreciate if you'd send this to them. Ask them to subscribe, because that's really what helps our listenership across the board. But thanks everybody for joining, and we will see you guys next week.